I woke to the sound of glass under tires. Smoke pressed low in my throat. A man was driving the ruined taxi, not the driver I remembered. His shirt was dark with blood. One hand held the wheel at the top. The other clamped his side. "Stay still," he said. I stared at the fractured windshield. Streetlights broke into shards. The badge on the dash hung crooked. "Who are you?" I asked. "Someone who got here in time," he said. "Where's the driver?" "The car was on its side. It isn't now." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give." "Take me to a hospital." "No." "That's not a choice," I said. "It is," he said. "I'm choosing it." We were moving away from the city. The lanes thinned. My heartbeat refused to settle. "Why are we leaving?" I asked. "Because someone is still looking," he said. "Looking for you or for me? For anyone who saw what they shouldn't." I tasted metal. "Did I see it?" "You will decide that later." Headlights rose in the rear view. He said, "Head down." And I bent until my forehead met my knees. The other car hovered, then drifted off. He waited 3 breaths before speaking. "Keep still," he said. "It keeps you safe." "I don't feel safe. You're speaking. You're breathing. That's safer than before." I lifted my face. The mirror caught my eyes, then his. "Your side is bleeding," I said. "I know. Let me press it. Later. Now is better than later." "Now we keep moving," he said. "Later we fix what movement costs." "Tell me your name," I said. "When we arrive," he said. "So there is an arrival." "There always is," he said. "Some are worse." "Where are we arriving?" "Somewhere quiet," he said. "Somewhere questions have weight." "I'm asking questions now." "You are." "I'm ignoring the ones that make noise." "I need to call someone." "No phones," he said. "You don't get to decide." "I do," he said. "Tonight I do." "That sounds like kidnapping. That sounds like rescue with rules. Give me one reason to trust you." "I pulled you out," he said. "That's not trust. That's first aid. It's a beginning." We passed a bus stop. 2 men sat under the weak light of a screen. He eased off the gas and coasted by. "Why me?" I asked, quieter. "You looked at me," he said. "I was unconscious." "Not before that," he said. "You looked and you didn't pretend not to." "That doesn't mean anything." "It means you were still there," he said. "Some people leave long before the night starts." "You talk like you know me." "I don't," he said. "I know the way you watch the road, like staying had a price you couldn't pay." I pressed my palms together to stop the shake. Red smeared my fingers. "This is your blood," I said. "Yes." "Did someone do this to you?" "Yes." "Are they the ones looking?" "Yes." "Why are you helping me?" He considered. "Because I decided to." "That's not a reason." "It is to me," he said. 2 minutes, I said. "Pull over and let me pack the wound." "Then we go." He drove in silence for 5 counts. Then he nodded once and eased the car into the shadow of a long fence. 2 minutes, he said. I unbuckled. "Lift your hand," he did. The shirt peeled back. The wound was bad, but clean enough to press. I took a folded cloth from the glove box. "This will hurt," I said. "I know." On 3. 1, 2, 3, he didn't flinch. His jaw eased a fraction. "Hold this," I said. Firm pressure. He covered my hand with his. Warm, steady. His palm swallowed the tremor in mine. "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me. Drive me to help." "This is help," he said. "Tell me one true thing," I said. "Anything," he thought. "I don't hurt women," he said. "Never?" "Not on purpose," he said. "Not anymore." "That's 2 truths," I said. "It's one with history. Are you the man they talk about?" I asked. "The one in the stories?" His silence answered before his mouth did. "Does it matter right now?" he asked. "It changes what I should feel," I said. "What you should feel is alive," he said. "We'll sort the rest when we're not moving." He checked the mirror, then set the car back on the lane. The engine carried us forward like it had decided we belonged to it. "I should be terrified," I said. "You are," he said. "You're also curious," About what? About whether the worst man you've ever met just chose you, he said. He didn't look at me when he said it. He looked at the road, and the night opened like a door we both had to walk through. Gravel hissed under the tires. The crash was behind us, but the sound still lived in my bones. He drove slower now, steady hands on the wheel, eyes fixed on the dark ahead. Every few seconds, his breath caught, controlled, shallow, deliberate. The cloth I'd pressed to his wound was soaked through. He hadn't asked me to change it. He hadn't asked me anything. The city was gone. No lights, no sirens, no witnesses, only the hum of the engine and the smell of burnt metal. He spoke without looking at me. People who do this, they don't miss twice. It wasn't reassurance. It was an obituary spoken early. I watched his reflection in the cracked side mirror. Blood on his sleeve, calm where panic should live. He was bleeding discipline, not weakness. Shouldn't you stop? I asked. You'll pass out. His voice didn't shift. If I stop, we don't finish the night. You'll bleed out before we finish it. Then I'll bleed quietly. The line silenced me more effectively than any threat could. He adjusted the mirror again, checked the rear. Nothing but distance. Still, he drove like the dark was watching. Seatbelt, he said. I already have it. Tighter. I obeyed. I didn't want to, but my hands moved before my pride could protest. That was his kind of control. No force, just gravity. You're used to people listening, I said. Only when it matters. And does this matter? He hesitated. The pause was heavier than any answer. Everything matters when someone's trying to kill you. For a while, we said nothing. The silence thickened, a second skin around us. It wasn't comfort. It was proximity. We were two strangers breathing the same borrowed air, pretending not to notice how it synced. I watched his hand flex on the wheel, veins rising like lines on a map. Pain flickered once in his jaw and disappeared again. Control didn't make him untouchable. It made him human in slow motion. You should let me see your side, I said finally. It's under control. You're shaking. I'm not. Then what's that? Adrenaline. Liar. He almost smiled. Almost. You notice too much. I can't help it. I'm still trying to decide what you are. Decide quietly. That made me laugh once, soft and wrong. His hand tightened on the wheel. He didn't look over, but something in him reacted, like he wasn't used to the sound of laughter surviving near him. The road curved. Fog drifted in, silver against black. He turned off the headlights. The world dimmed to the rhythm of our breathing. We'll stop soon, he said. For help? For silence. You already have that. Not enough. This kind keeps people alive. He slowed the car until it crawled. A single light blinked far off. Maybe a farmhouse, maybe another lie. He parked under the shadow of trees. The engine ticked. My heartbeat didn't. He stayed still for a moment, head bowed, hand still clamped to his ribs. I realized the control wasn't for me. It was all that held him together. You can rest now, he said. I can't. Try pretending. I turned toward the window. You always tell people how to breathe? Only when they forget. He leaned back, closed his eyes. Even resting, he looked like a man still driving somewhere far inside himself. I stared at the side of his face, the blood, the restraint. Fear had changed shape. It wasn't running anymore. It was watching, and in the thick quiet of that car, with the engine cooling and his breath barely audible, I understood what kind of story I'd just entered. One where silence was the first promise. And breaking it might sound like love. Dawn found us on an empty road that had forgotten its name. He turned off the engine beside an abandoned motel half buried in fog. We stop here. The words weren't a question. The silence that followed was. The building leaned like a memory that refused to collapse. One light still worked behind the front desk, flickering over dust and old keys. He took one without asking. Habit, not theft. Inside, the air smelled like metal and old rain. One room, one bed, a chair with a broken leg. No phone, no mirror, no way to pretend this wasn't what it looked like. He sat on the bed, fingers at his ribs. Blood had rebloomed through the cloth. I found a first aid kit in a drawer and carried it like a weapon I wasn't sure how to use. "Let me see," I said. He watched me long enough to make the air narrow, then lifted his shirt. The wound was ugly and human. I cleaned it with a cotton pad and the last drops of alcohol. He didn't move. When the pad touched flesh, his breath hitched once, quiet, sharp, swallowed before it could exist. "You should sit down," he said. "I am sitting. Further away. I can't reach from there." "Exactly." I looked up. His face was closer than it should have been. The distance between us was measured in heartbeats, not inches. "You don't like help," I said. "I don't deserve it. That's not how wounds work. That's exactly how they work." He spoke without anger, as if explaining physics to someone who'd never been burned. The room was cold, but the space between us was not. I wrapped the bandage around his torso. He didn't flinch. My knuckles brushed his skin, and for a second everything else stopped pretending to matter. His voice broke the spell first. "You should sleep. You look shaken." "I'm awake. You don't trust me. Do you trust yourself?" That made him pause. A long breath, a slow turn of the head. When his eyes found mine, there was no violence in them. Just fatigue so deep it looked like regret. "I try not to," he said. For a moment we stayed like that. Silence as confession. Distance as choice, outside. A car passed on the main road, far away and forgetting us. The sound dragged back reality. We both looked away at once. The line between mercy and desire blurred like heat. When his forehead fell against mine, I didn't move away. For a heartbeat, there was no war, no name, no side. Just breath shared like confession. He pulled back first. Always control even in collapse. The look in his eyes was half apology, half fear of what came next. "We need to go." His voice trembled only once on the word need. I helped him to the car. The engine stuttered but lived. Inside, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't cold anymore. It was tender and terrified. My pulse hadn't slowed. His hadn't either. We both pretended not to notice. When the city lights reappeared in the distance, he said quietly, "Don't make me do that again." "Do what?" "Forget which one of us is supposed to be the danger." The road ahead was straight, but nothing about us was. The car barely made it to the warehouse before dying for good. He parked in the shadows, chest rising too fast. I hadn't realized where we were until the door opened and 3 men stepped out. Their eyes hit him first, then me. One of them, a scar along his cheek, spoke like disbelief wearing a uniform. "You brought her?" "She's not the problem," he said. "Everything's the problem when it bleeds," the man snapped. He looked at the red seeping through the bandage. "You're lucky they missed your heart." "They didn't aim for it," he said. "They know better." That earned a half smile from the scarred one, but his eyes stayed on me. "You know what happens now, right?" "I'm starting to," I said. He looked at my companion. "Boss, you lost your touch." "Then find where I left it," he said. They led us inside. The air smelled of oil and dust. His old world, heavy with unspoken debts. A table, weapons, silence. He stood there like a man waiting for judgment he'd already accepted. "She saw too much," one of them said. "You know the rule." "She saw me," he replied. "That's all?" "Exactly." The tension sharpened, a drawn string ready to break. I spoke before anyone else could. "I can disappear," I said. "You'll never hear my name again." "They already have," one of them muttered. The scarred man laughed. "She's got nerve. Keep her. And we all die slower." I turned toward the man who'd saved me, waiting for him to choose which death mattered more. He didn't look at me. He looked at them. "She's leverage," he said finally. "They'll come for her before they come for me." The words hit like bullets I hadn't expected. I felt the heat drain from my chest. "Leverage?" He met my eyes then. Cold, steady, deliberate. "You wanted a reason." "That's the reason." The men nodded, satisfied with cruelty they could understand. They left to make calls, guns clicking against their belts. When we were alone, I found my voice again. "You didn't have to make it sound like that." "I did." Because you think lying keeps me safe? Because truth doesn't. You don't get to decide what I can handle. I already did. Back on the road. I stepped closer. He didn't move. I saved your life. And I'm trying to return the favor. The words were soft, but the silence after them was brutal. He sat on the edge of a metal table, shoulders sagging under invisible weight. Control had cost him something real this time. Loyalty, respect, maybe himself. You should go, he said, before they change their minds. And you? I'll keep them busy. By dying? By pretending I still matter. I wanted to say something sharp, something that would break through his calm. Instead, I whispered, you do. He looked away. Not to them, then to who? He didn't answer. Didn't have to. When I walked out, the door closed behind me with a sound too final for a promise. Outside, the night had teeth again. Inside, he'd chosen silence over survival. And I understood. Love in his world wasn't about holding on. It was about who you were willing to lose to protect what little was left of yourself. The road that left the warehouse had no signs. I drove until the sky paled, until the fuel gauge begged, until the world forgot to chase me. A small town blinked into view. 4 houses, a diner, a motel pretending not to exist. I parked behind it, engine ticking, air heavy with salt and oil. Inside the room, 1 bed, 1 window, 1 mirror cracked clean through the center. It felt appropriate. I dropped the blood-stained jacket on the chair. His jacket. The only proof he hadn't been a hallucination built from adrenaline and fear. Silence has a sound when it finally finds you. Mine was the hum of the mini-fridge and the pulse behind my eyes. I replayed his words. She's leverage. He'd said it like a blade meant to cut away feeling, and it had worked. Too well. I told myself it didn't matter, that what he'd done in that room was survival, not betrayal. But every lie left splinters, and I could feel each one under my skin. I remembered how his hand had steadied mine when the bullet grazed me, how he'd whispered stay still as if it was both an order and a promise, and how quickly promises disappear when other people start watching. I pressed my palms together until they stopped shaking. The shape of him was still there, not his face, just the weight of being seen once, and not flinching. On the table lay a ring I'd found in his pocket while cleaning his wound. Silver, plain, too large for me. I hadn't meant to keep it, but leaving it behind felt like finishing something I wasn't ready to end. I slipped it onto my thumb. Cold metal, warm memory, the mirror caught the movement, splitting my reflection in 2. The woman who wanted to forget, and the one who wanted to wait. You don't get to decide what I can handle. The line replayed itself, softer now, almost kind. Maybe he'd been right. Maybe truth did more damage than bullets. Outside, the wind pressed against the window like it wanted in. I let it. Night returned before I noticed. I hadn't eaten, hadn't moved, hadn't stopped listening for an engine that would never come. The room smelled like old rain and new choices. Somewhere between them, I decided not to disappear. If he was still alive, he'd need the lie he'd told to mean something. And if he wasn't, then someone had to remember the truth he'd buried beneath it. I turned off the light. In the dark, I whispered to no one, "You said stillness is a crime. Maybe tonight, it's forgiveness." The words stayed where they landed. Quiet, unfinished, true. I didn't hear the car. I felt it first. A tremor through the motel floorboards, a low hum that belonged only to him. By the time I reached the window, he was already there, standing under the streetlight, blood-dried, expression unreadable. He looked like the night had borrowed him and wasn't ready to give him back. I opened the door before he could knock. For a second, neither of us moved. He looked at the ring on my thumb, then at me. "You shouldn't have kept that." I wasn't sure if it still meant anything. It didn't. Until now. He stepped inside, slow, careful, like he was afraid the air itself might bruise. I stayed near the wall, arms folded to hide the shaking. "You lied," I said. "I kept you alive. You called me leverage. Because if they thought you mattered, they'd kill you. If they thought you didn't, They'd let you go. Then why didn't you let me go? Because I couldn't. It was the kind of truth that arrived too late to be useful. Silence pulled at both of us, a living thing that wanted more blood. He leaned against the table, voice lower now. I used to think love was weakness, that it slowed your hand, made you hesitate. But when you fell into that crash, I didn't hesitate. You sound disappointed. I'm terrified. I took a step closer. Of me? Of what you make me remember. What I could still lose. He looked at me then. Not with desire, but recognition. The kind of gaze that stripped the armor without asking permission. I've done terrible things, he said. Then tell me one that wasn't. His mouth opened, closed. No answer. That was his confession. I reached for his hand. It felt colder than I remembered. He didn't pull away this time. He tied the final knot in the bandage himself. Tight, neat. That'll hold. I nodded. Until it doesn't. He set the empty bottle on the table. It didn't fall. Neither did we. You can take the bed, he said. I'll take the floor. You won't rest if you're cold. Neither will you if I'm near. That earned half a smile, half a warning. Then we'll call it a draw. He lay back against the headboard, eyes open to the ceiling. I sat by the wall, knees to chest, watching the line of his breathing. Somewhere between fear and exhaustion, the silence changed temperature. It wasn't cold anymore, just heavy, human. When my eyes finally closed, his voice found me through the dark. If you dream, don't run in them, he said. It makes the night jealous. I didn't answer. Maybe I didn't need to. The last thing I felt before sleep was the room breathing with us. Slow, measured, like control learning the shape of trust. Morning light tried to enter the motel room and failed. Dust hung between us, moving slower than time. He hadn't slept. I could tell by the way he blinked, methodical, like a machine checking systems. I pushed myself up from the floor. Every muscle complained. He was already sitting, hand at his ribs, shirt undone enough to show the new bandage darkening. We didn't speak. Silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was our first language. Then he tried to stand and almost didn't. The sound he made wasn't pain. It was surprise that pain still existed for him. I caught his arm before he could hide the stumble. Sit, I said. He did. For once, no argument. I fetched water from the sink. The tap coughed, then gave. When I handed him the glass, his fingers brushed mine, calloused, steady, cold. He drank like someone who hadn't realized he was thirsty. You should have woken me, I said. You needed rest. And you needed blood. I've lost worse things. That line made me look at him too long. He noticed. You think this is the first time someone tried to finish what I started? He said. No, but I think it's the first time you cared if you survived. He froze halfway through setting the glass down. That tiny stillness felt louder than any gunshot. For a heartbeat, his control slipped. Eyes unfocused, jaw unclenched. I don't get to care, he said finally. It slows me down. Maybe slowing down is the point. He looked at me like the idea was dangerous enough to kill. You talk like you've never been hunted. You talk like you never stopped. Running. The air between us thickened again, not from fear, but recognition. He leaned back, gaze fixed on a ceiling crack. When I was a kid, I watched someone die because I waited. I thought help would come. It didn't. I learned fast that stillness is a kind of crime. I sat down opposite him, and now you think movement saves you. It keeps me from remembering. My father died in a car I didn't drive, I said quietly. He turned toward me then. You blame yourself. I blame everything that didn't stop me. We stayed there, two people confessing without ceremony. The words weren't healing. They were just proof that we still knew how to tell the truth. His eyes softened, then shuttered again. We make a good mirror, he said. Both cracked. Cracks let light in, I said. Or bullets. That earned half a smile, the kind people forget they know how to make. The sun edged through the window, finding his face first. He blinked against it, exhausted, human, Why save me? I asked. Maybe I wanted to see if someone could look at me and not flinch. I didn't. I noticed. He looked away, but the warmth stayed. I realized then that he wasn't the only one who'd been driving from something. Outside, an engine passed on the highway, far away and already forgotten. Inside, silence took its seat again, but this time it felt like company. He closed his eyes. "Get some air," he said. "We'll move before they find the trail." I stood, but I didn't leave yet. I watched the rise and fall of his breathing, the proof he was still here, still fighting gravity. And for the first time since the crash, I wasn't afraid of the quiet. It sounded too much like truth learning how to rest. The motel vanished in the mirror before either of us spoke. By noon, the road widened, a thin promise of civilization. Gas station, cafe, people. He hesitated before turning in. It was the first time hesitation looked dangerous. "We don't stop long," he said. The parking lot glared white. I followed him inside, every sense sharpened by the sudden noise, music, voices, laughter. It felt like surfacing too soon. He bought water and a map he'd never use. I watched the clerk watch him, the blood-stained sleeve, the impossible calm. Recognition moved through the man's eyes like a shadow remembering its source. A door chime. 2 men entered, leather jackets matching silence. They didn't belong to this place any more than he did. One of them smiled the way wolves do before choosing a direction. "Boss," one said, too casually. My stomach dropped. He didn't look at them. Didn't look at me. Just paid for the bottles and said, "Let's go." The taller man blocked the exit. "You disappeared," he said. "People noticed. People noticed too much," he replied. They were close enough for me to smell metal and cheap cologne. Every line of his body said, "Not here, not now." But the men wanted an audience. "Who's the girl?" I felt his glance before I saw it. One heartbeat, a silent decision. "Collateral," he said. His voice turned to steel. "You touch her, you answer to me." The room froze. He was protecting me by owning me. A cruel kind of mercy. The taller man laughed, low. "Didn't think you took souvenirs. Only the valuable kind." I saw what he was doing, talking in their language to keep us alive. Every word was a knife turned inward. The clerk pretended to stock a shelf. Nobody moved. He slid a hand into his coat. "I heard you chose the wrong side," the shorter one said. "I heard you still follow orders," he answered. The taller man grinned. "Old times, then." He didn't blink. "Old times are dead." For a second, it looked like violence would bloom right there between the aisles. Then the men stepped back, testing him, deciding to wait for a better stage. "See you soon, boss." He nodded once. "You always do." We walked out without running. Outside, heat hit like truth. I spoke first. "You lied for me." "I lied to keep you breathing. You called me collateral. Would you rather I called you target?" The words stung, but under them was something warmer, terrifyingly gentle. He opened the car door for me. A gesture so small it felt sacred. Inside, he stared out the windshield for a long moment. "They'll come again," he said. "No one leaves that life without blood. And me? You already have mine," he said, starting the engine. The road swallowed the silence that followed. Power had saved us this time, but the cost was already collecting. Dusk chased us down the highway until the light turned the color of ash. He hadn't spoken in an hour. The silence was full of memory. A black van pulled from a side road, headlights off until it was too close. He saw it first. I felt the shift in the car, the instant decision. "Hold on." The engine roared. Gravel flew. Bullets stitched the air where the car had been a second ago. He swerved through a gap in the guardrail and onto a service road lined with trees. Metal screamed. We slid sideways, stopped hard against a trunk. Smoke. Breath. Silence trying to understand itself again. "Are you hit?" "I don't know." He leaned over, hands searching, not rough, just desperate for proof. His touch found blood on my shoulder that wasn't mine. He stepped out before I could stop him, gun drawn. I followed because fear obeyed momentum. The van's doors were open, empty. He moved like a man expecting ghosts. The wound at his ribs reopened, dark through the shirt. "You're bleeding," I said. Later, his knees buckled mid-turn. I caught him before the ground did. For the first time, his weight belonged to me. "Sit down," I said. Now. He didn't argue. Maybe he couldn't. I tore a sleeve from my shirt, pressed it to his side. He gripped my wrist not to stop me, to stay upright. "You should run." "And leave you to what?" "To what I earned." "Then I guess we share it," I said. The moment stretched until everything inside it shook. He looked at me, really looked, as if recognition hurt more than bullets. "Why did you come with me?" "Because you didn't let me die," I said. "Because I wanted to see if you meant it." He laughed once, raw and short. "I meant none of this." "Then why are you still here?" He didn't answer. His hand reached my face instead, thumb tracing the cut at my jaw. It was a soldier's touch, pretending to be gentle. "You should hate me." "Maybe I will later." For a moment, the world stopped pretending to be dangerous. Just two people holding the proof that they'd survived each other. "You don't owe me safety," I said. "Then what do I owe you?" "Truth," he exhaled, shaky, reluctant, human. When his fingers brushed my jaw, I didn't move away. The touch wasn't about wanting. It was about recognition. Like he was confirming I still existed. And so did he. "If I stay," he said, "you'll get hurt. If you leave," I whispered, "you'll stay broken." He closed the distance. No kiss, no dramatics, just a shared breath, a trembling stillness that said everything words had ruined. The clock ticked twice. Outside, dawn was starting again, pale, forgiving. He stepped back, eyes unreadable. "When this ends, you'll hate me for surviving it." "I already tried," I said. "It didn't work." For the first time since the crash, he smiled. "Barely, honestly. Then we start from there." He reached for the ring, touched it once, then let it stay where it was. "Keep it," he said. "This time by choice," I nodded. "Then don't make me regret it." The air between us changed again. Still dangerous, still fragile, but alive. And for the first time, it didn't feel like running. It felt like returning. Morning hadn't finished happening when the noise came. Engines outside, more than one. He froze mid-motion, eyes on the window. The air changed, quiet with intent. They found us. He pulled the gun from his jacket, checked the magazine, blood smudging the metal. I reached for the phone. He shook his head. "No calls. They trace everything." The sound of boots on gravel. Voices, disciplined, close. He looked at me once, just once, and I understood it was goodbye. He moved to the door. I caught his sleeve. "You won't make it if you go out there. That's the point. You think dying fixes this? It buys you distance." "I don't want distance. You want to live." "That's different." The handle turned under his hand. Instinct overruled fear. I stepped in front of him. "If they see me, they'll think I'm bait. They'll underestimate me. You can't fight them. I don't need to. I just need to distract them long enough." He stared at me, measured, furious, scared. "Don't do this." "Then tell me to stay because you want me to. Not because it's safe." He didn't. That silence was his permission. I walked into the open sunlight first. The men stopped talking. Someone shouted my name like it belonged to a target. Behind me, he cursed under his breath and followed, against every instinct he'd built his life on. "She's not part of this," he shouted. "You want me." Guns turned his way. The world slowed enough for me to see the decision forming in his eyes. Not fight, not flee. Shield. He stepped in front of me as the first shot cracked the air. Glass shattered. Dust rose. Everything blurred. When the smoke cleared, he was on his knees, blood dark through the bandage I'd tied hours ago. I dropped beside him. No, stay with me." "Guess you get to return the favor," he said, breath thin. "Stop talking." "Can't. You'll think I'm gone." I pressed my hands over the wound. Warmth spread between my fingers. "Why?" I whispered. "Because I told you I don't leave people in the open. Sirens in the distance. Someone had called it in. I held his face, blood on my palms, sunlight in his eyes. "Don't close them," I said. "I'm not," he murmured. "Just tired of looking for exits." "You're not dying here." He smiled, faint and broken. "Then lie to me like I did to you." "Make it sound true." I did. I told him help was coming. That this time, stillness could mean safety. That I'd forgive the lies if he just kept breathing. He exhaled once, long enough for me to believe him. The sirens grew louder. The world didn't. When they pulled me back, I wasn't sure if he was gone. Only that his blood was on my hands again, and that he'd finally let me hold the weight he'd carried alone. The sirens faded first, swallowed by distance. Then came the light, blue, white, indifferent. They lifted him onto a stretcher I wasn't allowed to follow. Someone asked my name. I didn't answer. Names felt useless now. He'd already spent his last one saving mine. Blood dried on my palms, cracking when I tried to close my fists. They said I wasn't hit. They didn't understand that was the problem. At the hospital gate, a uniform stopped me. "He's under investigation," the man said. "You can't see him. Investigation." A word that made saving someone sound like a crime. I waited outside anyway, watching the windows until night replaced them with reflection. Every minute that passed felt like proof I'd traded one kind of captivity for another. He'd once told me every choice cost something. Now I knew what the currency was. They moved him before dawn, somewhere secure. No forwarding address for redemption. The nurse handed me a small bag, his watch, his wallet, a folded piece of gauze stained dark. I held it like scripture. The room smelled of disinfectant and endings. I pressed my forehead against the glass door he'd been wheeled through. Cold met skin, and for the first time since the crash, I let myself cry. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Morning again. Always morning after the worst nights. The street outside was empty, clean, cruel. I slipped his watch onto my wrist. It didn't fit. Time rarely does after loss. When I turned it over, there was an engraving I hadn't noticed. No one left behind. He hadn't. He'd kept his promise too well. I walked until the city forgot me, until the sound of my own footsteps was the only thing left to answer, and somewhere in that rhythm, I understood the truth. Love hadn't saved either of us. It had simply chosen which one would bleed longer. Weeks later, the city looked smaller. The crash site had been cleared, glass swept, blood forgotten, the road pretending it never remembered us. I parked at the edge of it anyway, engine off, air thick with unfinished sentences. The wind moved across the asphalt like it was tracing ghosts. I let it find me. A taxi passed. Same model, same color, different story. For a second, I almost lifted my hand. The ring still sat on my thumb. The metal dulled from sleepless days. In the cracked side mirror, I saw myself. Alive, scarred, not sorry. He'd once said, "Stillness is a crime." I understood now. Stillness wasn't the sin. It was what you did with it. He'd used his to bleed for someone else. I was using mine to remember why. The road was empty, but my pulse wasn't. Every beat sounded like his voice saying my name without saying it. I whispered it once into the quiet. Half a confession, half a goodbye. You said no one leaves clean. Maybe that's the point. The words didn't echo. They settled, heavy, right? He'd taught me that mercy could look like danger, and danger could sound like care. I wasn't afraid of either anymore. When the wind shifted, I felt it. A familiar heat. The kind that means someone's still watching even when they shouldn't be. Maybe imagination. Maybe not. Either way, I smiled. I started the engine. The mirror caught my eyes, then the empty lane behind me. He didn't leave me in the open, I said. He just left me facing the right direction. The road stretched forward, quiet and endless. And for the first time since the crash, stillness didn't feel like waiting. It felt like peace.